Hi, I'm Duran Inci and I'm the founder of Optimum 7. Over the past 20 years, I've built and grown companies in all kinds of industries. Along the way, I've seen what really works and what does not when it comes to building businesses that last. Lately, I've been interested in Japanese business practices. It's fascinating because while so many companies here struggle to survive for a couple of years, Japan has thousands of businesses that have survived for over 100 years. That's not luck. That's a whole different way of thinking about business. And in this video, I want to share 4 lessons that I have learned from their philosophies that help businesses and business owners build something that lasts, not just survives. Let's keep it simple. The Japanese aren't just working harder, they're working like they're going to be around forever. There's this company called Kongō Gumi. They've been building temples since year 578. They've seen empires rise and fall, and they just did one thing. They only build temples. That's next level discipline. I can relate to that. I haven't been in business for 1500 years, but I have been in business for 20 years. And there are a few clients that I have that have been with me for the past 20 years. Now, when a client pays you $5,000 to $10,000 a month for 20 years, you know that there's a logical reason for that. When I look back, there were a lot of times where I lost money because I wanted to make things right. There were many times where I told my client what he needed to know, not what he wanted to hear. I gave one specific client a promise 20 years ago that I would always stay on top of the technology and I would always know answers when it comes to his marketing, and I've done that. Now, during these 20 years, I saw a lot of businesses, a lot of competitors not do the right thing for their clients. I've had many conversations where people would come to me because they got burned by another company or another agency. I think ethics and expectations is a big part of creating something that's lasting. And because of that same concept, I've walked away from a lot of money multiple times. For example, this was about maybe 10 years ago. I had somebody show up to my office, put a bag of cash on top of the table, and said, I need you to do a web development project for me. And I didn't do it because I know that a legitimate organization would never pay you a bag of cash for a project. What happened next is that I'm still here, I'm still in business, my company is still growing. So if you want your company to last, here is what I keep coming back to. Make decisions for the decade that you want to see, not just for the next quarter. Pick what you want to be known for and perfect it. Put away a percentage of your profits, I would say maybe 20-25%, so you can weather whatever storm comes your way. You have to have enough cash to breathe. You have to have enough contingency plans to survive. Long story short, get obsessed, get really, really good at what you do, and focus harder than anyone else you know. We all know Toyota for being super reliable, right? But here is something cool. You probably don't know that they get about 500,000 improvement ideas from all of their employees every year. And get this, they actually try most of these ideas. Doesn't matter if it's a tiny tweak or a big process change, it all gets looked at. That's not just some busy work from management. This company is built on one concept: to always get better. In Japan, they call this the Takumi mindset. And no, Takumi is not just some fancy title, it means you are a true master. Somebody who spends decades honing in on one craft that they do so well that they could do it while they're sleeping. And we know that the biggest respect goes to those people who go in deep, not the people who spread themselves too thin, not the jack of all trades, master of none. It's about being relentless. It's about always focusing on getting better, making improvements a part of who you are, not just a phase. It was maybe about 12, 13 years ago that I hired my first developer, my first programmer. I didn't know a lot about custom programming. I knew how to code here and there, but I was never an expert. And as we had more and more conversations with prospects, one thing became very clear. Custom functionality in e-commerce businesses, specifically B2B e-commerce businesses, was lacking. And there was a competitor that had about 5 to 6 functionalities highlighted on his site. What I did is I took those 6 functionalities and I took everything that we've built and everything that we have not built, and I created this grand functionality section on my website with like 100 functionalities. 70 of them I had never done. And I went to my team and I said, we're going to build every single one of these functionalities. And my team thought that I was crazy. Because why would you build a functionality that you haven't sold, a custom functionality that you haven't sold? And 10, 12 years later, we are probably one of 10 companies, one of 10 agencies in the world that can build really, really complex B2B e-commerce functionality. Now, it took us over 10 years to try and perfect that craft, and we're not even perfect at it yet because the technology keeps changing. However, we got really, really good at it. We used to do $5,000, $10,000 projects. Now we do $100,000, $200,000 projects. But to be able to get here, we had to commit. And the impact was millions of dollars and winning a lot of projects and bids that we wouldn't have otherwise won. But the challenge that we have, I think the mindset of the entrepreneurs and business owners here are, well, I gotta make money now. Return on investment, return on ad spend, ROAS, ROI, all of the fancy words and lingo. We don't really focus on our word. We don't really focus on building something that's lasting, that will outlive you. We just wanna make money today. That's fine, but with that concept, you're not gonna be around for hundreds of years. And maybe you don't care. So if I had to recap this, to bring it back to our own businesses, your business, first, let your people really, really specialize in something. Don't shuffle them every year with some cross-functional exercises. Just have your team, have one of your team members do one thing really, really well. Get the veterans to teach the newcomers. We have something at Optimum 7 where we give you a work buddy, and the buddy stays with you for the first couple of months as you are being onboarded if you're a new employee. And I'm not just talking about passing down the tips and teaching the newcomers what they need to do to actually handle the workload. I'm talking about the crust of it. Why are you doing this? Why are you building these functionalities? For what purpose? How does it benefit the client, the customer? Really, really understand the concept. And if you do that, you're going to get small wins weekly, every week. What you need to do is celebrate those small wins. Reward the people who go deep and who really become experts in hyper niche areas. Write down what actually works. Document, process, create a system for that so that it never leaves your organization, so that when somebody quits, you still have access to that information. Basically, if you want your business to last, you can't treat the people that work for you like just gears in a machine. Treat them as masters, keepers of your legacy. How do you keep moving forward without selling out? Japanese companies have been figuring this out for centuries. For them, tradition and innovation are not enemies. There's this hotel, Hoshi Ryokan. They have been welcoming guests since the year 718. What's more wild is that when you step inside, it still looks like the same place with the same beautiful gardens. But they also have Wi-Fi and online booking. You can see that they didn't ditch their identity for tech. They blended the two. That's what the Japanese call harmony. It means really knowing what makes you, you, and making sure that anything new actually fits. They follow a concept called shuhari. You start by learning the rules, then you bend them, and only later, when you understand what really matters, can you break them. In my business, there is something that has not changed in 20 years. and that is the client is always right. We don't have to create fancy reviews and fancy surveys to really know if our clients like us or not, if they think that we have value or not. We simply just ask them. And if we hear the slightest of complaint or even tone, it gets flagged. And they get an email and a special attention from the CEO, and I'll even get on a phone call with them if I have to. Now, it doesn't matter if it's the year 2025 or 2095, we will never change this process. Why? Because we understand that our word, our promise, and how we carry that promise is more valuable than money. So ask yourselves, what about your business absolutely cannot change? What needs upgrading to better service your customers? And only make changes that legitimately help your customers or help your people. The companies in Japan that have stood the test of time play for what they call win-win-win. It's called Sanpo Yoshi, which basically means good for you, good for me, good for the community. Everyone, employees, customers, and even the neighborhood has to benefit. The idea goes way back to the merchants of Omi, an old Japanese city. They built trade empires that lasted for centuries using this one principle. They made every deal fair. They invested in their communities. They helped each other when times got tough. They built trusted relationships with their suppliers and their customers. When you build like that, people want you around. Customers keep coming back. Suppliers stay loyal. And when trouble hits, economic downturns, natural disasters, the community steps up. What separates a transactional business than a legacy-driven one is the fact that you care, you give a shit. It's not just about money, it's not just about profits. You have a word that you want to keep. You have a history of promises behind you that holds you accountable. And you know the word shame. And on top of that, it doesn't matter if you care as the owner, you have to make sure that you share a vision so that your employees care as well. So it's not easy to create a legacy-driven business. It requires very strong fundamentals. How can we bring this concept to our businesses? In practice, give your team a real stake, not just a paycheck. Track how your decisions impact everybody, not just your bottom line. And I know this is very, very difficult to do because it's difficult enough to survive. And now you got to worry about all of this stuff. Well, you do if you want it to last. And if you think that that's soft, look at what saved one of Japan's oldest companies through disasters and very bad economic times. It was not investors that saved them. It was customers, suppliers, partners, community, neighborhoods. That's what happens when you build something valuable for everybody. I really hope that these lessons from Japanese business philosophy taught you a thing or two, because it definitely impressed me. It takes patience, focus, and a lot of care. These are qualities that show up in everyday tasks that you take on, everyday interactions that you have with your clients, your customers, your partners, your suppliers, your community. It builds up. That's something that anybody could start doing right now. It makes sense. If you can keep your eyes on the long game, it's about building something that's steady and strong, something that your employees, your customers, your community can count on for years, maybe even for generations. I'd love to hear how you take these ideas and make them your own in the comment section, because at the end, it will be your unique journey that will create the legacy worth telling stories about. See you next week.